I'm going to tell you what we're talking about today. We're talking about today one of the most crucial and sensitive topic that most car dealers don't like to talk about.
Sensitive?
Yeah, super sensitive, because people intend to kind of either forget about it, not talk about it, avoid it, ignore it. You call it whatever you want.
All right.
And which is the marketing and how much.
Ooh, tough topic.
I know, like where you're actually receiving your leads from as a
Oy.
car dealer. And me and you, we talked over this topic over the years, over and over again. We flipped it over and over again,
Yep.
trying to bring it to the attention of the car dealers, and they just don't like to talk about it. Either they just want to ignore it completely, like completely ignoring it, or they just don't care. They literally don't care. All they care about is just being out there and spending thousands of dollars, and not necessarily really try to figure out what they're getting for that thousands of dollars.
Well, it's kind of like an uncontrolled pain point. You know, we've let's start with ourselves. We've done, we've done a lot of ads in the past, and sometimes you get to a point where you're at the mercy of somebody else's algorithm. So you think you have control, but at the end of the day, you really don't have control. But at the same time, if you don't do it, leads don't come. So
That's right.
You're at the mercy of something that's uncontrolled, and it's not always positive. So maybe that's why people don't want to see it. Doesn't mean they shouldn't.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I think there are different reasons why people don't want to kind of dive deep into why and where those leads are actually coming from, and as I mentioned earlier, it's a very sensitive topic, and I gotta say a couple of things that might be very hard to be heard. A lot of those leads are fake. So if you look at the first layer of like
What do you mean fake?
comes in,
Like fake? What do you mean fake?
okay, I'll elaborate on that. So I'll get to it just in just a second. So pretty much every dealer looks at how many leads they received from that one vendor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of their only metric. They
Okay.
don't really go dive deep into how many they actually have discussion with,
Okay.
how many they end up having on the lot, okay? And obviously the ones that they end up selling cars to, which is number one metric, number one, most important number in this entire equation. And I think that that's something that been avoided for so many years by so many car dealers, and really not for the good reasons, honestly.
So you're talking about in any lead, there's a type of funnel. So you have top of the funnel, you have bottom of the funnel. Bottom of the funnel is like someone who's basically ready to buy from you. Top of the funnel can be a Facebook message that says, "Hey, I'm interested in this car," right? So what you're saying is that a lot of dealers are only paying attention to the top of the funnel.
That's right.
Which contains
just
a lot
the
of
first surface,
which contains a lot of junk and spam,
that's right,
and trash and all that.
Well, in fact, without again mentioning names of any third parties, for the sake of kind of respecting them, because they're colleagues in a way, we're working with them very closely.
Mm-hmm.
But many of those, even the biggest ones, are faking leads, and let's talk about that. That's
Well, hold on. Let's talk about how we know that, because we've had a lot of people say to us,
that's right,
I don't think these leads are real. But
well, I'll give you a couple of reasons. We'll start with the fact that, sometimes when you're trying to reach back to them, they just don't respond, right? And that's like the first indicator from the dealer perspective of like figure out, okay, this is not a true lead. This is not a real person. Okay, that's number one. Number two, sure, we did create a network kind of pinpoint in which we can figure out in a very, I will say, analysis that happens behind the scenes to figure out if a lead is real or not. And how is that? We see a sequences, perhaps like our network is produced or created by many car dealers across the country. And so if we get to see certain phone numbers that popping up over and over again, that being used by those third parties, right? We can see right off the bat that those are fake. They're literally fake. They're using a certain virtual phone numbers very much
Mm-hmm.
to create this kind of like, a lead inquiry through that site that comes through an ADF,
Mm-hmm.
which reaches your CRM somehow. And you end up trying to reach to them. They never pick up the phone. They never call you back. They never do anything. And those sequences are literally coming back into our ecosystem, in which we can kind of figure out very easily. So we kind of flagging those phone numbers over time, and within, I will say, less than like couple weeks, we can just say, okay, this is a fake lead for sure. And we've seen it happening for so many years now.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that influence, that those leads are influencing that first surface, as we spoke earlier, which kind of give you a feel that you're getting what you're supposed to get for that kind of money that you're spending. And in some cases, you're spending like 3 and 4 and 5 grand just to get some leads, and they're promising you a certain number. And so those third parties are literally trying to, like, send you your way whatever leads, even in the cost of like they're fake, perhaps.
Yeah. So probably, I mean, you've got a lot of franchise groups who do forensic lead audits, right? They're looking at numbers. It's like, okay, what's our cost per lead to where they are in the funnel? But the majority of dealers don't do that. The majority of dealers say, hey, I signed up with, hypothetically, let's just say Car Gurus. I signed up with Car Gurus and I'm getting a bunch of leads. I'm getting a bunch of text messages. I'm getting a bunch of notifications. So if we talked yesterday, and I keep going back to this 80, 80, 20, 80, 20, and most of you probably heard it. It goes back to 1600. And 80, 20 is 20% of the things that you track lead to 80% of your results, or the time invested lead to 80% of your results, whatever. But the goal is 20% of your leads are probably really good quality leads. But you need to understand where that money is being invested to get that. So where are you putting in your money to get the quality leads? I think that's really the question, because if you want to get a lot of leads, we can get you a lot of leads for 10 cents a lead, running it through a Facebook campaign. I mean, this was happening during COVID, right? The tables turned. During COVID, it was like, I can't handle any more leads. I need help qualifying these leads. So if I was let's say I start a new business, or we start a new business, which is a marketplace. What better way to get people excited about the marketplace than sending them leads right away?
Sure, but let's focus on the main agenda here, and in which it's being able to track, being able to understand, being able to kind of figure out what you're getting for the money that you're spending again. And there are, let's go one step backwards just for a second. One of your number one biggest expense as a car dealer, it's marketing. Most of your money goes there. And naturally, that as a car dealer, that this affects your entire business, right? Like you said earlier, like if you're not on Car Gurus, you're not existing away in today's market. And same applies to some other channels too. But Car Gurus, I will say, probably is one of the biggest, or maybe the biggest at this point. And they worked it very hard over the years, and they tried to make pretty good and clear and as transparent as they could make for the consumer, in which made a good platform for consumer to look for a car to a certain extent, of course, sure. But the point is that, again, and without again mentioning any name of any third party, they're all faking leads, in which again hurts really bad to car dealers. And the reason is because the dealer themselves don't bother going dive deep into what's the actual numbers that comes after the first surface, in which that's kind of the most crucial part of every business, especially car dealers, again, because they're depending on that, and what we've done over the years is we created a service called Monitor in our CRM, in which takes in consideration all of your phone calls, all the text messages you're receiving, all type of communication, including even inquiries from third-party sites. And that kind of accumulates into one central place, which kind of create a place to go to in which you can see, all the statistics and what's involved in from your marketing, segments, right? So you understand in a way what you're getting from every third party. But that's again not enough. Why? Because even though we created this beautiful UI, which makes it pretty much laid out
Right.
very clear, still a lot of people are not using it. Or if they're using it, they're not using it properly. And the reason for that, again, is because no offense on car dealers, but most of them are not trying to think deep into the numbers. They're focusing on the unit. They're focusing on the sale, and they're very much ignoring the big picture, which is like, okay, I'm spending, let's say, I don't know, 10 grand perhaps, on a marketing. Where am I getting my sales from? Where should I put my actual money? Should I maybe take a little bit from here, try to push it a little bit more throws there? Maybe I should just remove this completely channel because I'm not getting anything from it. And that comes down back into some dealers that appears to be in a location where there is certain vehicles, body styles, or price range that works better versus other places. That kind of like can affect where you advertise. Because I give you a clear, simple example. I don't think a lot of people advertise in Craigslist like K plus vehicles, and I think the reason for that is because Craigslist has been for many years known and recognized for you're gonna get a good deal over there, and so
For sale by owner,
exactly,
owner.
but not just by dealer too for so many years, not by owner only, not
But
at all.
as far as the consumer, the mindset is like, I might as well check Craigslist because there might be a good deal from a private party.
Well,
on
not
Craigslist.
because of that, but because again, the market of the vehicles that appears on Craigslist are more like a 5 grand to 10 grand, kind of those ranges where you're going to find a very good deal, something that probably someone just wanted to post it very easily, fast and easy, and you're probably going to end up finding that deal on Craigslist. And of course, over the years, things has changed, and OfferUp came along the lines, and then Facebook Marketplace, right, and all those things. And I think Facebook Marketplace today is like the new Craigslist of the old days.
Yeah.
Even though it does not have as much inventory as Craigslist used to have on the good days.
Yeah, Craigslist was power player, absolutely.
Super power play. And I think that as soon as, again, without talking anything bad about Craigslist, because we do love Craigslist in a way, we very much like build a big portion of our business at the beginning of time based on Craigslist, because we created the best Craigslist platform, and still, in my opinion, one of the best platforms to advertise, again, on those ranges of prices where it matters and where it works, perhaps. But definitely, things has been shifted, and they will continue being shifting through different channels and different places, and it's really important to encourage car dealers to advertise where it matters at that moment in time, and not just stick into this is my bill. I got to pay Car Gurus. I got to pay Craigslist. I got to pay, whoever that is.
But bro, maybe it's a little deeper than that, though. Maybe it's a little deeper than that, because from what, and I could be wrong. Last time, I could be wrong. It's been a while since I looked at these things. Was when you sign up with, for example, Car Gurus, Auto Trader, Cars.com. Let's say those three. Don't they put you into a contract?
No.
Sure.
In fact, yeah, 100%. They're actually offering you, in today's market, they're offering you, most of them, kind of a free trial in a way.
Okay.
And they're trying to lock you into a 3-month, kind of a contract, or maybe I should say like a quarterly thing.
So let me just make sure, because
sure,
it's important to us, right? If a dealer is stuck in a channel, you can't just pivot and get out of the channel.
Well, no, that's not the case, because I think neither one of those companies can afford at this point to do a contract. Sure, in the old days, there used to be more like, okay, let me lock you in for a long time so you're going to get a better deal. But today, it's not the case. In fact, I'm aware of that because I talked to one of our dealers not too long ago, about like 2 weeks ago, in which he got, they begged him really bad. And we're talking about Car Guru specifically in this case.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're desperate. I mean, this entire industry is desperate because sales has been decreasing tremendously in the last, I will say, year or two, and we're like some car dealers that you can ask, they're gonna say, we don't really know what's gonna happen tomorrow, and that's a tough moment for many car dealers. But that's kind of like the moment when you do need to, again, I want to go back to that, you do need to kind of figure out, okay, what works, what that's not working, and if it's not working, I need to walk away from it. I can't stick to it. If I stick to it, that doesn't give me any benefits, but having leads that literally not converting, you know what I mean?
Look, I agree. I'm on board 100% because anything that's not working, you need to track, measure, and replace.
Absolutely.
It's really I mean, geez, I remember when I was in the industry, it's gotten a lot more complicated now than it was then to advertise. Back then it was just like pound on Craigslist, right? Maybe hit Car Gurus, maybe Auto Trader, and that's it. That was it. There was, there was maybe Facebook groups. But today, so a dealer's going to look at, I got AutoTraderCars.com, Car Gurus, I got Carfax classifieds, right?
Yeah.
And everything else that you look at outside of those is experimental.
Yes.
It's totally experimental. So
Sure.
if you look at, I mean, I'm not really even listing OfferUp, like Craigslist is experimental because there's a right and wrong way to do Craigslist. A lot of dealers are still doing Craigslist completely the wrong way for reasons we can talk about in another session. You've got Craigslist experimental, and the reason the reason it's experimental is because the software providers that are publishing these ads could be doing it wrong. So you're dependent on the software that you use. Number one,
they're not could be doing it wrong. They're actually doing it wrong for a very long time. People spending thousands of dollars on Craigslist, let's just say it.
That's true.
People need to be aware. People don't really understand Craigslist. Neither the companies who advertise on Craigslist or the dealer themselves. They just putting their mercy in the hands of the software company who intend to say, you know what, we're the best at doing it.
Right.
But they haven't done it for long enough to kind of have the right metrics and the right, data to be able to analyze and figure out if it works or not.
Yeah, there's a lot of caveats.
We've done it for so many years.
There's a lot of caveats like campaigns. There's a million things that we have up in our back end that,
and we'll talk about it another time. But yeah, sure.
Yeah, that empower you to do really well on Craigslist. So you've got Craigslist that is dependent on the software that you use. Now you've got Google Ads.
I gotta just add to this. There is a reason why. The reason is because Craigslist format, in a sense, works where you publish an ad and it lasts only 30 days. And the format of the actual listing by default is by relevance. Or maybe I should say like the most recent goes to the top. So if let's say you post into a location which, the rotation over there is super fast speed and it just moves so fast, your ad will end up being within an hour or an hour and a half at the worst case scenario. In LA, for example, is going to go all the way to the second page. So you're not really going to get that much but traffic.
So you are dependent on the software that you use to succeed or not succeed on Craigslist. If you do it manually, you're out of luck. Number one.
I think Craigslist as a whole, it's a all different kind of an animal. And but if you don't understand Craigslist, you should not even do it or try it. That's why a lot of people are walking away from Craigslist.
Right? So you have your let's say your big four. Everything else is an experimental marketing channel.
Yes.
So you have Craigslist that's dependent on the software that you use in order to succeed. Number one. Number two, you have Google Ads, which are basically vehicle listings. But that's not dependent on a software that you use. It's dependent on an agency that you use to advertise. Okay.
Well, it's the same, right? I mean, it's the same in the end of the day. Yeah, sure. You're depending on.
No.
Listen, everywhere. I'm going to put it this way: everywhere where you have the possibilities to do a customization of any kind, it gives that flexibility, in which that flexibility turns into an advantage of someone who knows what to do with that flexibility. And majority of people, let's be honest, you know what? They're not tech savvy, and those even software companies has created themselves based on the same kind of like picture, trying to paint themselves as like an expert at something, but they're not really all right as an expert. So Craigslist have its own kind of metrics and how you're gonna get the most out of the advertisement. Google Ads is the same. There's no difference because there is so many different ways to advertise on Google Ads too. You can do all kinds of different ads. You can do a different scheduling. You can do a different locations. You can do so many things. So there's no, I don't see a lot of difference between the two.
I see a huge difference.
It's a different, dinosaur, but yeah.
I see a massive difference between the two. Massive difference, because when you use one software that, for example, I'm just going to take our software. When you use that, it's going to basically lay out everything that you need to do to get it right. It doesn't require a massive human element or component to analyze and to think as much as, let's say, Facebook ads or Google ads. Because here's what happens with Facebook ads and Google ads. We've seen a lot of this with what we've been doing too. For example, Facebook ads. Facebook algorithm changes so much and so frequently. It's always changing. So we'd have ads that are running for 6 months doing fantastic, and all of a sudden, boom, overnight, gone. Right. So a dealer has to depend on a marketing agency to run these ads. And that company typically sets up these ads and they just let them run. Right. They're going to make their little tweaks and stuff like that. But it's so difficult to find a marketing agency who's really on top of this stuff for Facebook, for Google. I mean, Craigslist is more automated in a sense. Let's just say that way. And then you look at Craigslist is a lot. Well, no, when you use our Craigslist software, it's a lot. Yeah, but
it's not automated by any means. Not at all.
If you use the right software, it's automated. There's no software.
But still, this is the thing. Like, I think you're getting it wrong in a way. I think Craigslist, Facebook ads, Instagram, whatever, TikTok ads, Google ads, they're all under the same segment. They're coming. You're setting a budget. However you do it, scheduling it, and you're just spending the money, and there's no guarantees, right?
Well, there's no guarantees to car gurus either.
But wait a second. There are so many different ways to do either Craigslist, Facebook, Google ads, TikTok, whatever that is, right? All those ads, ads. But because I think car gurus is more like a listing. It's not an ad. Huge difference between the two. At least,
Craigslist is a listing too. World, when you go to cars and trucks for sale, all you see is cars and trucks. When you go to Facebook, you go to your wall. Instagram, you go to a wall. You're going to see motivators selling crystals for therapy, and then you're going to see a car ad. It's completely different
but it's personalized. You see, you're right. If you were not looking for cars recently, it's not going to appear to you. So it's still an ad. So no matter how you look at this, it's coming from a different angle, sure, but it's still an ad, and it is still, again, a budget.
Yes.
And many different types of settings around it,
But wait, your car, your vehicle,
yes,
that you're advertising on, let's say, Facebook or Instagram, is going to be competing against a variety of other products and services, not just cars.
Well, I must say, and one more thing to just sharpen that point even more. Most of those ads will appear under Facebook Marketplace to begin with, in which if you go into the section of the vehicles in Facebook Marketplace, you're going to get to see those ads over there most of the time. Okay? So it's not really true that you're going to end up seeing it on some random pages, unless, again, you were looking for that maybe, type of a car or whatever, so that's kind of where it's going to go down to. But the point is, forget about all of it. The most important thing is this, to understand, again, the core of all of that, So yeah, sure, there's many ways to advertise on either one of those platforms. Even in Car Gurus, when you go to Car Gurus, you have like different tiers. Like, you can spend more money if you would like to. They're going to take it. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to tell you, what, you got 3,000, you got 5,000, you got 10,000 if you need to, and sure, yeah, they're going to push you up as high as they can, especially in the first couple of weeks. They're going to make sure that, you're going to get a lot of leads, and you're going to start, hopefully, sell some cars, and you're going to be very happy. And that's when they're trying to lock you in,
So, okay. So for a car dealer, the question is, why don't people look at the stats? Okay. Because we've had these conversations,
that's right.
Personally, I have set up tons of different backends and settings and walk dealers who are like, okay, add in your expenses and do this. Right. And nobody goes back to it. So the question is, why? Why don't they care? But there's a
Yeah.
reason for that. It's not because dealers wake up in the morning and say, you know what, I don't give a f- about my business today. It's because maybe the reason they don't care is because there's not a lot you can do about it. There's a lot you can do about it, but hang with me. So
Okay.
if I go in and if I'm like, what else can I do? I can't become a marketing expert, right? I don't know all the new things that are constantly coming out with TikTok and with Facebook and with all these different things.
Nobody can. That's not their job.
Right? Nobody can.
No.
Most marketing agencies, they don't.
They have hard time
Right?
with that too.
Correct.
Of course.
Correct. So why would somebody look at the results? I mean, maybe this is the mindset for, small to mid-sized dealers. Why do I look at the results if it is what it is? There's nothing I can do about it. Well, the reason you need to start looking at the results is so you can start planning on doing something about it, because it doesn't make sense to do anything unless you know.
You don't have to plan to do about it.
It doesn't make sense to do anything unless you know what your cost per qualified lead is on a channel overall, right? So if I take 3 or 4 channels, if my cost per lead is whatever, $50 for a qualified lead, let's just throw a number out there, right? If you start doing any other channel and it's under that amount, keep doing it. But if you don't know that number,
you have nothing to compare.
What can you do? What can you
have
do?
nothing to compare.
You can't judge if a marketing agency is doing a good job or not, because everything is relative and relevant to you, your target market, your area, your location, your type of vehicle. So as much as people think like all these dealers are my competitors, sure, they are. They're competing for views, right? But every dealership is different because you have completely different inventory and you're in a different segment. Even if you're in the same city, you can iron that out. You can, no?
Well, so, I think it comes down to, a lot of dealers don't have the time, taking the maybe out of the equation now completely because it's the reality. They just don't have the time during the day to look into those metrics or to update those expenses, as you mentioned.
Sure.
I think that's the biggest issue.
Wait a minute. If this was June of 2021 and it was just past, the COVID peak, or maybe the beginning of the
no. You're
let me get back to this. Let me get back. Yeah, there's plenty of time during.
It's not about that time. That's not in their agenda. That's not in their day-to-day to do.
So
not in their list to do.
So it's not a time issue. It
is a time issue in their perspective.
I don't think so. I don't think it's a time issue.
I tell you what, based on many talks, many conversations I had with car dealers, they just can leverage the time to follow up on something that is, in their perspective, not as important as waiting for a call, perhaps. Being ready for that call to come in.
Okay.
That's just like one example, right? And I think that's the biggest issue. And that's something that, as much as we're going to try to educate people, we won't be able to change that. There's cultural thing when it comes to car dealership, and either you're a one-man show or a franchise dealership, franchise dealers likes a lot of, metrics and reports, and they like to dive deep into numbers and blah, blah, blah. But they're still missing that one most important metric, which is again, it's that number that says, okay, how many cars I sold through this channel, and that's something that they're suffering from the most.
Sure. I agree. Yeah. But let's agree to not blame it on time.
Well, I do, because that's the way they do. You see what I'm saying? Because that's what I've heard most of the time. Like, that's their perspective, and it's very hard to change.
Hear a lot of excuses. That does not mean that you can blame it on that.
Well, don't get me wrong.
You can't.
Me personally, I'm not blaming it on the time whatsoever. I'm just saying, like, that's what they do.
Correct.
They blame it on time.
It's wrong. It's totally
sure,
wrong.
but sometimes when a dealer says, you know what, I don't have the time during the day, even though, let's say, they do have the time, you got to merge to that. You cannot. I learned personally that you cannot. There's certain things you can do with a car dealer. You can tell them, okay, you should do this, you should do that. But it is in the end of the day, like after you hang up the phone call, it's going to be up to them what they're going to decide to do and what's not. And 100%. In the end of the day, no matter what you're going to say and I'm going to say in here, the instinct will just happen all the time. And that's just natural to happen. It's just a cultural thing. They're
Sure,
very much focusing on like
sure.
buying cars and selling them. They
They're-
don't care about what's happening around
I
that
get it. I
business.
get it. And
Yeah.
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the dealer. I'm
I
talking
get
to
it.
the
I
dealer,
get
and
it.
I'm
But,
saying if you want to
but you
compete
can't.
moving forward, you need to
Yes.
find a time to look
Vanya.
at the shit that matters the most. You have to
Vanya,
find a
I
time.
gotta tell you something. You have to understand that over the course of the last
Mhm.
13 years, I've learned that the hard way. There's no way to educate those people when it comes to certain things. And you just need to accept it. And so I end up saying, you know what? I'm not going to talk to dealers. I'm not going to say, you know what? We should do this, we should do that, or you should do this, you should do that. No, listen, you don't want to do it? That's fine. You know what? Leave it for me. Okay. And that's how we came up and say, you know what? We need to create reports. The AI reports are very much like our advantage reports that comes to you your way every week, very much brings all the information to your end. And it not just tells you like where you're selling the most amount of cars, but on top of that, which is the most important thing, is like giving you kind of pinpoints and ideas on what you should do in terms of like where you should put your money into. Like it's giving you suggestions, true, real suggestions, telling you you should take some of your money from that channel and move it to that channel to that degree. And that changes the way you're very much running your dealership without again going back into those like heavy duty UIs and trying to understand them and trying to analyze them and say, you know what, I'm going to call later today to cars.com and I'm going to cancel them because you know what, I'm tired of it, blah, 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 blah. Dealers don't have that kind of understanding. And that's something that we have to take control of. We have to make sure that we're bringing it to their attention without them doing any analysis.
But wait a minute, that's something they can already see in the system. Like if you go in
Sure,
our
but
system
people
right
don't
now,
go to those panels.
and this is what I keep saying.
Yeah.
As a dealer, if you're not willing to understand your core cost per,
and they will never be willing. I want to make it very clear to you. They will never be willing. They're not going to change their way of being. That's just car dealers. That's the way they are. No offense on anybody, you know.
I have faith, man. I got faith.
I'm telling you, like we're talking about like a very small segment of percentage, which is like we're talking about like maybe 3% of car dealers, like GMs or you know people who owners of car dealership, like indies that are actually really care about their money to that extent, and they might even end up switching and moving their third parties over the course of certain amount of time to see what they're going to end up getting from each one. And that's how they end up like, okay, you know what? This has been working for me better. This has been working for me. But they're working based on their feeling. And the feeling in today's world does not work because there's so many moving parts and you cannot truly go to a lead, say, hey, where did you come from? For example, it's just nearly impossible to do that.
That's
another people who just call you and ask you for availability.
Right. Because now we're getting, so let's go a little deeper on this for the dealers that want to go a little deeper on it, is attribution. So attribution seems to be one of the core. I mean, for us, attribution's been very important. And what is attribution? Attribution states that how do you attribute where the deal came from, not necessarily where the lead came from, because a lead can come from multiple sources.
That's right.
It can come from Car Gurus, and then they can go to your website, and then 2 weeks later they can go to Craigslist, and then 3 days later they can come in from Facebook. So this is something that we're tracking, and we track the order of these things, right?
That's right.
So let's talk about attribution for a second and why that's important, and where do you really attribute the deal, right? Because ultimately, I think what matters most is which platform brings you the most amount of closed deals.
Absolutely.
But chances are that, I mean, some people are going to say, no, it's about qualified leads. It's up to my salespeople. Yes, I get it. But if you look at it annually, it's always going to be on which platform brings you the most amount of ROI. So
absolutely.
How do we look at this attribution? Because there's different ways to look at this attribution, right? So if I have a lead that comes in from four different channels, and 4 channels, different times, let's say all within 2 weeks, Who should get that credit?
Well, the most recent one, the one that's been triggering, the most recent, we do actually, not like any other company, we're very unique when it comes to the tracking side of things. We're not just tracking phone numbers, we're tracking even websites too. So let's say if, for example, someone came into your website, either you're using our website or you're using another site, we're plugging in a widget on your site in which gives us the power to track, okay, this lead came from, let's say, again, Car Gurus, for example. And so as soon as they're submitting either a finance application or they trying to call you, the phone number on the site will switch to that specific phone number of Car Gurus, which at that moment of time, I don't need to ask that lead or where you came from. I already know right off the bat.
Sure. So yeah, that, makes sense. Unless, I guess it's always going to make sense that way, right? Whoever brought in the last lead gets the credit.
That's right.
But what if the customer, I guess it doesn't matter, right? What if the customer wasn't ready? There's so many different variables. Maybe it doesn't need to be that forensic, because
we don't need to go that forensic to the numbers.
Basis. You really have to have enough data in order to say,
correct,
okay, this works. And
we always encouraging people to say, you know what, when you start with us, we're giving you a starting kind of point where you're like, okay, we start tracking. And within 2 to 3 months, then we're like, okay, this what has been working for you the most. This is what you should be avoiding, maybe even canceling, and saving thousands of dollars over the course of a year or two, or God knows how long, and just pour it into where it works, because that's very much what it comes down to in the end.
Yeah, I agree.
So, just to summarize this, I think that we are at a point in our software company perspective that we stopped trying to educate people. We're just literally giving you the meal prepped and everything, and you just need to eat it very much. And it's up to you to decide either you would like to call that third party and say, you know what, I would like to cancel, or not. But I think it makes the decision making much more easier to decide, you know what, let's go in this direction, or let's go in this direction in terms of budgeting, or maybe canceling again.
Now it does. If we let's go back a year, or let's go back 2 years. Let's go back 6 months. I remember, let's say I get 500 leads a month from any one of these channels. I'm asking myself, is the channel not working, or are my people dropping the ball? Because you can have both happen quite often. Right. Because today people spend, 11 hours online researching. Like I read this stat the other day, people spend 11 hours online researching and visit 1.5 dealerships.
That's right.
Okay. So during the research process, yes, they're researching, but they're also texting, and they might be calling. So if the ball is dropped in that initial state, it's not the channel's fault.
No,
it's the rep's fault.
Yes.
So, and that can create a whole mixed transparency and mixed signals with your cost per lead acquisition or your cost per sale per channel. And maybe that's one of the reasons why people haven't looked at it, because it's super dynamic, right? But now that there is AI, that AI will handle the initial response to get that interest, to connect with a sales rep, right? Now there's no more excuses.
Well, I think there's a lot of points to that, but it's again comes down back to only one single point, which is like a car dealer would not make a decision because, to begin with, is never going to go and try to look into those numbers because he doesn't care. He just literally don't care. What we do different here is we're literally taking all the data, we're putting it together in such an easy way to make a much better decisions. And those decisions will affect any car dealer. Like I remember back in the day that when, we started this company, we helped many people just by integrating that phone tracking capabilities when it comes to texting and phone call recording. And so we are assigning different phone numbers, right, to different third-party sites, which again allows us to do the tracking,
Okay.
But we still end up going back to that dealer saying, hey, this is what you're getting from this is what you're getting from that. Like, we had to actually go after the dealer and tell them and encourage them in a way, like tell them, okay, this is what you're doing, that's what you're getting from here, this is what you get. It just goes back to that educational thing over and over again. Like, you know what, let me put this one on the table, and it's a big one, it's a big elephant in the room. We started this business thinking, you know what, we need to do, I don't know if call it coaching, but it was more of like, let's call, every dealer once a week and try to talk to them and try to educate them, try to help them as much as we can. They don't care.
Yeah.
They literally don't care.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why they don't care is because just the way they're conducting and running their dealership. And
Well,
again, we don't intend to change it. I don't think we should try to change that.
I think dealers were very thankful for it, and I think they genuinely they cared a lot about the act of it, but there was no implementation, there was no action.
Correct.
And it's the action part that's a little bit difficult. And sometimes, I mean, let's face it, understandably so. There's so many different hats to wear in a dealership when if you don't have different departments, that it's hard. It's hard to be really good at all of these different things. So thank God for data and AI and everything that we're able to build in order to create very easy and direct and actionable tasks that
absolutely
make a huge difference, not a lot of tasks that make a little difference, and I think that's the goal, because people are they're tired of not knowing. It's very hard to act when you don't know. It's very hard to commit yourself and say, okay, I'm going to make these changes and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, if the data that you're getting is not accurate in the first place.
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot of guesswork, and then you go to a marketing agency who are the gurus of gurus.
That's right.
And you don't get results, and you don't want to do that again. How many times did we see this with Craigslist?
Oh, so many times.
How many times the dealers, they say, tried Craigslist? I mean, this is going back, a year or 2 years, 5 years, I don't know. They go, try Craigslist, it didn't work. Right? Remember that? And we tried Craigslist again, and they're like, wow, Craigslist is great again. No, it's not that. It's that you were doing it wrong. So if you're not going to get it done right, don't do it at all. And you can't get it done right unless you have easy to understand data that tells you if you're on the right path or if you're on the wrong path. It's
correct.
That, right?
Yeah.
Don't trust the gurus, trust the numbers and trust the data is what I'm saying.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. You're trying to make it sound like a commercial, but you shouldn't. It's very much like it. The numbers are in front of you. And, again, I don't think that we should ever try to educate people in that sense. And the reason is because by nature, they're just not thinking that way. And so we shouldn't be trying to.
Way. Everyone thinks their own way. They're going to make those decisions based on how they run their business. And that's totally okay. That's what makes everyone.
No. What we're doing is different. What we're doing is we're actually taking all this data and making a sum, and like, here it is. Now you do whatever you want to do with that, and that makes, again, decision making much easier, and that's kind of like the goal over here. That's what we're trying to do in here for so long. And it's not just with tracking, speaking of, it's with everything. I think AI in general will come to that kind of point where you can make better decisions, sometimes even on demand, like on a phone call level, and we spoke about that. We're probably going to talk about another time, but that's a very much crucial thing for a car dealership, because car dealer, either you're a franchise or indie, you're still making hard decisions. Sometimes, you're still gonna say, you know what, let me cancel this, let me get this, let me do this, all kinds of different things. You're gonna change, you're gonna switch, you're gonna swing, and there's nothing wrong about it. But when it comes to getting you the data, getting you the information that is actually super valuable, then you can do something with that. And your decisions will be better, in every single way.
Because it's driven by data, not gut feeling.
Correct. And that's what we're trying to figure
out.
Here.
If you're in an auction block and you're making a gut feeling purchase,
that's the worst.
No, not always though. If you
trust me, in many cases, I end up with the car with a bad transmission and a bad engine when it was as easy, But
on a lot of situations, I've never made more money in my life on units that I made as an impulse gut decision.
Sure, but I can call it lucky.
No, I don't call it lucky, because
I can call it lucky. I leave it for myself to say you're lucky.
Yeah, I'll
that
call it
moment
payday.
of time.
You call it lucky. But if you've done something often enough, right,
Sure.
that gut feeling is important. If you haven't done something often enough, that gut feeling doesn't mean anything,
Sure.
right? So the only way you can make a good decision, a smart decision, is by leveraging data that's served to you and say, hey, here you go. What do you want to do? That's
Absolutely.
it. That's
it.
it.
Yeah, and just getting that data, and really don't have to understand it. Just need to act on it.
Yeah.
Because that's like where we're summarizing everything to you.
Right.
So it's easy to digest.
Exactly.
Because if I ask you to go to the gym, for example, starting from today, you might say, oh, wait a second, I'm not ready. I'm not prepped. I need my mental to be ready, and this and that, and all these different algorithms in your life that needs to align to get you to go to the gym. And I think that you're right, but a very good point that most car dealers, and we haven't said that in this discussion, but we should have right at the beginning, is that they're using their gut feeling to make decisions. And that's a very bad mechanism.
Not on everything, but not on everything. Not on everything.
I think on everything. If you have data and you have a feeling, which one should you select? Obviously, always with the data, right? Always. Of course. There's no question about
I agree with that.
Data always wins over feeling, because and that's what you should do. Listen, I understand a lot of dealers who runs their dealership, okay, and they're buying. You brought a kind of very good topic, like buying based on feeling. Sure, I mean sometimes you're gonna make really good money by going with your gut feeling and say, you know what, let's just buy it. But it's that business as a whole, you can't treat it like that. You can treat certain things, but you just can't treat your dealership based on gut feeling.
Sure, but there's a lot of data. There's a lot of what happens when you hire people, right? What happens when
you got to give it a try? Yeah, you got to give them a try.
You have to, gut, right? Yeah. Our gut, it's what makes us all unique and different.
There's always like a theory
crazy in a
and
way.
Practice, like a theory and practice, you have to separate the two. But when it comes to your marketing, again, it must be focusing on the data, because the data is there. It's not like it's not there and you have to use a gut feeling. But if there is data, why would you use a gut feeling? That makes no sense.
People have had to use gut feeling because the data.
Well, back in the day, sure.
Data, no, not back in the day. Even a year ago, even 6 months ago, and some people still today. True. It is true. I'll tell you why.
It is not true,
because they have the
We've
data.
We've done phone tracking for so many years.
No, they have the data. It's the wrong data. The data is not accurate.
It's not true always.
What do you mean it's not true?
It's not true, because we've been doing tracking since we did our phone systems back in 2016. And that's many years now that we are having pretty good, accurate data that kind of suits your understanding. The fact that you didn't take it as a dealer and say, okay, let me break it down. Let me look at it. Let me review it once every 2 months or whatever and make a better decisions over my marketing expense. That's something that most car dealers didn't do, sure, even though they're using our software.
Which makes the data
that doesn't mean that it wasn't exist. It is exist 100% during this entire period of time.
Sure. But
people didn't do anything with that.
If the dealer doesn't go in and selects, here's the channels. I mean, it shows you which channels you're using to advertise. And if the dealer doesn't go in there and putting their cost per those channels, we're not fortune tellers. We don't know. We don't know what your cost per lead is. So if that data is not there, they've relied on gut. Right. So when it comes to gut feeling, I can have all the data in the world in order to pick up a car at auction or pick up a car on the street, but I still have to go off gut feeling, which is my past experience or hopes of the future, which is telling me maybe I should or shouldn't have this car on the lot. Like, am I going to put a Bentley in Spokane in Washington that's a GTC convertible? Probably not.
Probably not.
So there's a gut feeling to play that. I guess what we're trying to get to is, if you can replace gut feeling with crystal clear, actionable data, it's going to make you more money. Fact.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Yeah. That's very much it. That's what it comes down to. I think that in the end, we are encouraging people to forget about trying to educate them, forget about trying to teach them what's right, what's wrong, how to do, when to do. we
Yep.
brought an AI report on your marketing channels, which can give you that insight at a glance. So you don't have to, again, go dive deep into
Mhm.
too much
Mhm.
numbers and too much
Mhm.
worried stuff that you shouldn't be worried about in a way, and that's one of the things that we're doing differently today that we did
Yeah.
in the past,
Yeah.
and that makes a difference in many ways.
Yeah. And the best teacher is the market.
Absolutely.
The market is the best teacher. So if somebody doesn't want to do this today, it's okay. The market will teach you to do it when you have to do it. Otherwise, there's going to be consequences for all of us. For all of us, not just small to
right.
mid-sized car dealers, software companies, everybody else. And that is to stay in line with the needs of the market, which are always changing.